All right, so I do feel like arguably spirit guides as a whole is somewhat of an overexposed, saturated topic of conversation, but I felt like there's such a huge part of our lives here and what I do personally as, an intuitive channeler. So might as well just chat about the topic and maybe there will be some interesting things that come through because I legitimately do not have a plan for any of this. So we'll see. Okay, so what are spirit guides? I'm sure that if you are watching this, you probably have some idea of who or what they are, but if not, I will share. Essentially, we have maybe 2 to 5 or even 6-ish spirit guides that we have watching over us here in this lifetime, and they are essentially entities or energies, and they can be human, they can be not, they can be past ancestors, they also cannot be. Typically, I do feel that we have already bridged some sort of a connection with them rather than not, because they have to kind of resonate with us on some kind of a level because they have to share similarities in order for them to guide us essentially. But really who they are or what they are can be literally anything. It could be an animal, it can be a blob of energy, it could be something that sounds made up like a fairy, a mermaid, etc. Because they can really just take on whatever form or physical manifestation that they so choose because they aren't here in the physical world. So typically the difference between channeled information from a spirit guide versus channeled information from a past ancestor, for example, is that our guides are a lot more concerned with our energetic trajectory here in this lifetime, our life purpose, our life mission, our karma, our soul contracts, really anything and everything that is fulfilling our intended purpose here in this lifetime. A lot of times past loved ones will come through with more so advice of validation, resonation, comfort. And it's not that spirit guides can't and don't provide this, it's just that they have more of a job to do, right? And since they are typically a little bit more evolved than, say, a past loved one who just initially transitioned or, passed over, it's typically more wisdom oriented. It could be more profound advice. In some ways, they can be a little bit more critical than our past loved ones. So it really depends if you're going into a reading or if you're going into personally connecting with, one or more of these groups, what your intended outcome is, right? If you have a lot of questions regarding your life purpose, it's likely that you want to contact your guides. If you're looking to kind of transmute painful memories or experiences or traumas, a past loved one may be more helpful with that. But of course you can do both. I mean, why not? Better to have a holistic, view anyway. There are also other energies and entities in the universe. There are the, things we call ascended masters who are essentially, even more evolved than our spirit guides. But, just to clarify, our spirit guides definitely need to go through some energetic work in order to be a spirit guide. We can't just have any old spirit, wandering on the streets, just helping people in this lifetime. That would be somewhat of a hot mess. So, they have to obviously have some sort of qualifications, you could say. And there are also just other interdimensional entities. We're literally talking about anything and everything here in the universe. But again, these are people who are specifically assigned to you, and it's their kind of duty and mission to see you through this incarnation here in this lifetime. So I can talk about a few different common questions that I get about spirit guides because I feel unfortunately, because this should literally be the best and most peaceful, reliable connection that you have here in this lifetime, there's a lot of contention because people are generally very frustrated that they are not communicating with their guides or that they're not understanding the way that their guides are communicating with them. And I want to, first address that in a lot of ways, this is a bit of a fallacy. Just because you're not verbally talking or communicating with your guides does not mean that they are not subconsciously kind of working through you, or just putting up signs, which maybe on a conscious level you're not totally aware of, but you are more so on a subconscious level. So I really urge people not to worry. The only way you're going to literally cut off communication with them is, one, if you set that intention, or two, you're just so deviated and disconnected from life that any single impulse that you have, piece of intuition that you have, interest that you have, you're so aggressively flat out denying. When you're listening to your own intuition, when you're following signs, when you're following leads of impulses, so long as they're, obviously safe and not out of a place of negativity, a habit or a vice or an addiction, this is indirectly listening to, your guides. It doesn't have to be so black and white. It doesn't have to be, I'm not proactively, consciously communicating with them, so I'm not communicating with them. That's definitely not the case. However, I totally understand the frustration because it seems like that would, need to be the case. But a lot of times it's just generally not necessary because here's the truth of the matter. We are intended to be the, manifestors of our own destiny. Like, yeah, we have like somewhat of a PLA, but, we definitely don't have a solidified plan in this lifetime. But guides are not really supposed to get in the way of that. They're just supposed to help, guide us and see us through it. But they don't want to dictate our lives. They don't want to tell us what to do every single day. They don't want to tell us how to fulfill our purpose. They just want this big overarching, concept or theme, our general karma to be fulfilled in some way, shape, or form that is, hopefully beneficial for us. That's the other asterisk on here. But like, they're not overly concerned with the, day-to-day ongoings. They are just like looking at things. I mean, I guess that's maybe somewhat misleading. Like, yes, they're like still a part of it, but like it's not the nitty-gritty type of advice that we seek out, typically with spirit guides. Like, oh my God, should I, take on this one small project? Should I consider like not seeing this guy anymore? Like, it's like, yes, they have like some sort of input, but like they really want us to figure things out for ourselves, and a lot of things are not important enough for it to be kind of like a qualifier for our life purpose or our life partner, for example. So they're just kind of like, we literally don't care. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of questions that I've asked spirit guides over time, and they're just like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're deviating from the point, right? And that's also like another thing we tend to do is distract ourselves from the point. So anyway. So spirit guides can, of course, like subconsciously communicate with us. It'll just be random stuff sometimes, honestly, like signs which are through like TV, social media. If you see an ad or something come up and you're just like, oh my God, I keep seeing signs about this. Or like, maybe it's not even that obvious, right? Maybe it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, I like really want to do that. Or like, oh, this really inspired me, or like something like that. Like, those are really common ways. It kind of just meets you where you are, right? If you take the train every single day and you see someone wearing a shirt, which like feels like a sign to you, like yes, you need to meet spirit guides halfway in terms of you acknowledging and accepting these signs, but also they will inevitably come to you so long as you are, open to it and relatively consistent with what you're doing. It can be a little bit harder if you're like very, very spontaneous, but if that's also your intended trajectory, then your guides will figure it out. Don't worry about it. It's really when you're just like not listening to your intuition and not doing what you feel is right, that it can be like much more of a problem, and you can indirectly put up more walls in regards to this communication process as a whole. I think that a lot of people would be surprised how helpful it is to simply set an intention that you want to communicate with your guides, right? It's literally just that. You can say it out loud, you can write it in a journal. I want to have more of a connection with my guides. I want to feel their presence. I want to like be aware of the communication. There's a lot of things that you can do, and you can even ask for them to communicate a certain way. I'm not saying it's always going to be perfect and 100%, because inevitably they probably have a harder job communicating to us, right, than us communicating to them, because they can kind of hear it pretty easily. But yeah, and then, this isn't even broaching the entire topic or subject of other things that your spirit guides can help you with, right? So like if you are facing a major decision, maybe it's not even major, maybe it's just like a smaller decision. If you are looking at different paths, if you are, just contemplating really anything and everything in your life, your spirit guides can help validate this or support you in your decisions. And you just really need to ask. I think that asking is just the simplest thing you can do, right? Like, and it takes like little to no effort, so long as you genuinely feel like you want to know the answer. I think that a lot of people prevent them from communicating with their guides or knowing the answer because they don't want to know the answer at the end of the day. And I don't think a lot of people self-reflect in this kind of a way. I think they just get frustrated because they're not hearing things, they're not seeing the signs, and it's just like, well, are you genuinely honest about being open in terms of receiving this information? Because a lot of people have walls up. A lot of people are scared, afraid. They just don't want to know at the end of the day. So, I think this is something that prevents a lot of people from moving forward with this process. And it's a good thing to ask yourself. For a lot of people who are feeling lonely, isolated, like no one is on their side, it can be hard to remember at the end of the day that you do have spirit guides, but they can provide you with so much energy, with so much love, with so much insight, memories from like past previous lives. Like they can quite literally do anything and everything. And so no matter what situation that you are here in and on this earth, they are available at your disposal. They have tools, they have options for you. But they can't do much if you are not, again, meeting them halfway. And, I feel like that's the main message that spirit guides want to relay onto the collective. Yeah. And, if someone is asking, well, I don't even know if I'm blocking this information from coming through, of course, we're going to start by setting the intention, right? That's number one. And there are a lot of things that you can do to kind of like practice your intuition, whether that's just setting aside a day, maybe that you have a little bit more free and you're just like, I'm going to do whatever my intuition tells me to do. It could be that you need to broach heavier topics and things which you've been avoiding. Anything that you feel that you should be doing, anything that you feel is right, it's really time to start diving into these topics, because what ultimately ends up happening is when we have blinders or a block in one area of our life, it tends to mimic in other areas, right? You become so accustomed to not listening to your intuition, to avoiding things in one area of your life, it just kind of like bleeds over into others. It ultimately, weirdly, becomes a little bit of a habit, which is something that you don't want to happen. So it's time to start listening to yourself. It's time to start having, tough conversations about the ongoings in your life, maybe even things that have happened in the past that you're still holding on to, fears about the future. That's like another big thing. And just being more in the present. Obviously, if you're not doing the energetic work that you need to do, whether that's energetic cleansing, whether that's meditating, stretching, yoga, etc., these are all good things to integrate. And unfortunately, there's no right answer because every single person is different, but also it is kind of like a byproduct of time. This communication that you have with your own intuition as well as your spirit guides, it's literally like your own made-up language. So you're not going to learn this language overnight. Yes, there are like phrases and things that you can learn right away, which is very helpful, but yeah, it's going to take some time. Another like quick tip that I learned a while ago is to know your spirit guides calling card. So in other words, you go through this meditation where you invite your spirit guides in and you ask them to, provide you a feeling that they're around. And this feeling will be only one that they can kind of like provide to you. So a lot of times I feel a lot of emphasis on my left shoulder, and that I know is my guide. So this can be really helpful in terms of a safe way of communicating to them on the other side if you still have some fears surrounding this communication as a whole. I just want to clarify something. I personally do not know a ton of information about my own spirit guides, and I channel energy and information all day long. There have been times when I have channeled spirit guides for clients and they're just like, we're actually not ready to like come across as who we are. And I'm just like, that's really weird. Why would you want to do that? And there are two reasons for this. Sometimes they want to reveal themselves to the client in their own way, on their own terms, in their own time. Totally fine, makes sense. It's a very personal experience. Number two, sometimes knowing a little bit too much about your guides detracts from the point. It's kind of like they have a job to do. It's almost like professionalism, right? Like maybe if you know too much about your coworker, it becomes less of a professional relationship. And it's not that the only services that they provide are professional, because it's like very much emotional, it's very much energetic, it's very much about love. But in terms of the duty and the task to be followed out or like followed through, it can become somewhat of a detriment to the point. And it's also reframing our relationship with these guides as something different than like a human to human connection. I almost don't know how to explain that. It's like almost something you need to kind of figure out for yourself, but it's like, it's a strong, solid connection that is very, very loving, extremely intimate, but also like simultaneously very independent. And I think in a lot of ways, our guides are kind of like training us to be proper energetic humans, not just like proper adult humans, but proper energetic humans, which are incredibly physically independent and self-sufficient, but also very emotionally and mentally aware and connected to the rest of the collective. And this is like almost ironically the opposite of what kind of happens. So this is like really the type of human beings that they're training us to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, they feel it's not always right to reveal themselves immediately. I feel pretty good about this. I think that we've approached a lot of different topics in regards to spirit guides. And, you know, if you have more questions or you're just like looking to get started on this process, honestly, I'm not even the best resource for this. I am not necessarily like a spirit guide educator or spirit guide helper. I don't know where I'm going with this, but basically, like, I don't guide people through spirit guide meeting meditations. I don't like study them, so this is just kind of like from my own experience. As I mentioned, I like honestly barely communicate with them, like on an conscious level. So maybe not the best person, but this is you know, my experience with channeling other people's guides, and you may have a very unique one that like is not even you know, 100% relevant to what I've been saying. You know, hopefully you're still getting something out of it, but may just be quite different. So all things to keep in mind, just hopefully moving forward with a sense of peace and relaxation, that you are communicating with them, and that you have power and opportunity to kind of change the way you communicate with them over time, and yeah, just feel a little bit better about it and have more emphasis, power, and control overall. So good luck with you and your spirit guides.